Remember the Time Stone? You know, that space rock that a Sorcerer Supreme had to safeguard with his life to ensure time travel wasn't possible to anyone who didn't deserve it?
And why the hell did Strange give it away?
Yeah, well, Tony Stark was able to build a working time travel Iron Man suit in his 4th rendition of the armor. No big deal. Tinkering with insane features is, or was, Tony Stark's coping mechanism. In fact, by the time of his heroic sacrifice, he made at least 85 versions of the Iron Man suit. Let's take a look under the hood of just some of these MCU suits. The Mark I suit isn't the most flashy of Tony's extensive collection, but come on, it was built in a cave.
With a bunch of scraps!
Aside from the flamethrower that would make the likes of Rick Dalton blush, the suit contained one very important feature, the arc reactor. It served as a pacemaker and kept Tony alive to have that good old cheeseburger. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Iron Man. Y'all thought the Man of Steel breaking the sound barrier was impressive? Our boy Tony Stark did that like 5 years prior. Slimming down the Mark I to the Mark II, Tony made sure to maximize the flight speed, which came in handy pretty much all of the time. I'm just surprised that the suit wasn't sponsored by Audi. Remember that time in the MCU where Tony exclusively drove those things? For a guy that could fly at the speed of sound, he was flexing those cars entirely needlessly. Alas, just like Tony moving on, so did that sponsorship. Now it's Lexus, and I gotta admit that one Eternals ad was pretty great.
Oh, why? Is there a battle going on? I hadn't noticed.
As we skate back onto the topic of speed, it turns out that even in the comics, the Mark II had its own strange speed boost upgrade of its own. Stark actually integrated dispensable rollerblades. Tony was so ahead of his time that he mocked up Heelys all the way back in the 60s. Sure, the Mark II went fast, but speed is meaningless when the suit can't handle the natural elements of the Earth. To make up for this, Tony built heat and fire resistance into the Mark III to survive against the natural forces. Of course, while Tony originally face-planted because of not having the environmental resistance, he's able to outsmart Ironmonger with it and pull that Uno reverse card on him to take him out. It's moments like these that really outline the genius of Tony Stark and his entire arc throughout the films, which is, it's not always about the offense. More often than not, it's about the defense. Remember that scene in Iron Man 2 where Tony free falls from the sky, landing in the perfect superhero pose while cheerleaders hype him up as he gets ready to kick off the Stark Expo? Hey Tony, what did you do as soon as you landed?
Shit!
Well then this feature wouldn't help out too much. Maybe add like, a diaper?
I guess my dry cleaner was right. I'm a worthless sack of crap.
Anyways, one of the most common complaints from actors suiting up is the lack of a zipper in their costume.
It gets kind of itchy. It rides up in the crotch a little bit too.
If you think Spider-Man has a hard time pulling down the zipper, can you imagine how rough Tony had it? Not every upgrade is going to be as grand as nanotech. Sometimes a simple catheter is all that makes a difference in a suit, and that's precisely the innovation he made in the Mark IV suit.
You know, the question I get asked most often is, Tony, how do you go to the bathroom in the suit? Just like that.
The Mark V was awesome, but let's be honest, the only thing it really did different was put a new meaning into what a suitcase is. Apart from the portability, it was just a standard Iron Man suit. The Mark VI, on the other hand, that brought the power. In Iron Man 1, Tony was constantly consulting with Jarvis to figure out how much power he had left in him, which isn't the most efficient thing to have to do mid-battle as the entire fate of the city is in your hands. Enter the triangular arc reactor. Opposed to just looking different, it brought a hefty upgrade to all of the weapon possibilities. No longer did Tony have to nerf himself in battle. Iron Man was now essentially capable of... Tony now literally had the power of the sun in the whole of his chest. Flight is cool and all, but the logistics behind it kind of suck when you aren't Superman. At this point, Tony had to science the heck out of the speed of flying, cost of elements during flight, heck, even the energy required to fly. But there was still something holding Tony Stark back while midair: full control of his body. You see, up until this point, Tony had to utilize the thrusters in both his feet and gauntlets to allow for smooth sailing across the skies. But that's kind of a pain when you really just want to go all pew-pew with your gauntlets while fighting aliens. Thus came the Mark VII and the upgraded thrusters, which were implanted all over his suit, allowing for Iron Man to have full control over his maneuvers, while also freeing up his hands to go all Galaga around the Battle of New York. Of course, following the Chitauri invasion, Stark gains PTSD.
Gods, aliens, other dimensions, I'm just a man in a can.
To combat with the constant paranoia, he tinkers away creating some pretty specific suits. And by some, that's an understatement, there's like 35 of these bad boys in what Tony dubs the Iron Legion. Apart from being there, specifically to sell a bunch of different toys, they do bring some cool ideas onto the table, like Igor, who was the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson of Iron Man costumes, and the Star Boost armor, which would theoretically allow for spaceflight. Theoretically, because these suits don't really do anything in the movie. There are so many fun features going throughout these countless suits that it really does suck when the Iron Legion blows up as spectacularly as a Disney fireworks show. Shifting gears from the movies and into the comics, when Tony built this model's equivalent in the 616 universe, the Extremis armor, he actually had the suit jam-packed into his bones, which allowed for an instantaneous transformation from millionaire playboy philanthropist into a big man in a suit of armor. By the time Iron Man 3 rolled around, the MCU wasn't quite ready for nanotech, which is where the homage to the Extremis armor comes in. To make the Mark 42 always know how to locate Tony's body, he injected a bunch of subcutaneous chips into himself. At first, I was gonna make a joke about how insane that is, because it is, but Elon Musk is currently trying to microchip the world through Neuralink, and he just won Times Person of the Year, so what do I know?
Good idea for an electric jet.
You do?
Yeah.
Then we'll make it work.
When Iron Man got the Hulkbuster, the arc reactor was pretty much old news, but creating a suit that could be powerful enough to stop a Hulk, that required some pretty significant power. So if one of these guys was fairly strong, think about what 11 of these bad boys can accomplish. In this case, more is definitely better, as not only was Tony able to take on the Hulk, but the puny Banner himself was able to take on Thanos' forces with relative ease because of it.
Oh, this is amazing, man! It's like being the Hulk, not action.
Since we're on the topic of Age of Ultron suits, did you know that the Mark 45 was the first of Tony's armors designed with an anatomical form in mind? The costume designers have likened it to a wearable Ferrari, but I think from this point on the suits kinda hit that uncanny valley. At this point, it goes without saying that Tony's pretty crafty. The MCU really plays up that AC/DC, shoot first, ask questions later aspect of Iron Man, but at the same time, we see Tony dealing with upgrades and innovations to his suit abilities on a daily basis. The man treats his life like a never-ending skill tree. Because Tony thinks about, everything, he's always got a plan, even for a crazy what if, like, what if I find out my coworker's best friend murdered both of my parents in cold blood and at the same time said coworker was actively campaigning against the UN, so I'll really need to stop him. You know that what if? It was because of this forethought that Tony had the sense to add in X-ray capabilities against vibranium in the Mark 46 suit. Combine this with Friday having the ability to analyze Steve's fighting style, and we've got a super soldier stomping armor. Since we're on the topic of hidden features in the Mark 46 suit, I need to talk about one more. There's a super brief shot where Iron Man tries to fire a net at Falcon, and I can't help but think that this was in reference to Tony admiring the webbing Spidey was working with, especially since Tony himself upgraded and played around with Peter's web shooters. Just the fact that Tony studied Peter's web shooters and then went, nah, I've got a net over here, I'll just use this instead. That's just great. Since we're talking Spider-Man, here's a bonus entry, the Mark 47. Featured in Homecoming, it's honestly just a repaint to the Mark 46, no real hidden features. But its colors are based on the Ultimate Comics Iron Man, so there's that. The Mark 50 suit is super impressive because of one particular goodie, nanotech. But that's pretty blatant, there's nothing secretive about that. However, the Mark 50 does have a feature inspired by his tinkering with the Iron Legion. To avoid being toast in space like Ebony Maw, Tony built in deep space protection and life support, which allows him to navigate the cosmos with ease. This was, of course, workshopped in the aforementioned Star Boost costume.
I may incinerate on takeoff, but I'll look damn good doing it.
Thematically, this armor wraps Stark's journey from the original Avengers full circle as he finally has a suit that can, well, at least theoretically, keep him safe from the threats he foresaw through that portal. And so we reach the final mark. During the all-or-nothing climax in Avengers Endgame, the Mark 85 suit comes in handy with its foreign object integration, which is basically fancy wording for, we didn't have the money to pay Peter Dinklage to come back and film a scene, so, Tony made the Infinity Gauntlet this time? Of course, we've only really seen it control the Infinity Stones, but the ability from the nanotech did come back into play in Spider-Man No Way Home, which, quick warning, slight spoiler for the movie for all 14 of you who didn't watch it on opening weekend. In the movie, we see a fun reversal of the foreign object integration when Peter uses the nanotech to integrate itself over on Doc Ock's tentacles, which I thought was just a really fun way to give Stark Tech one last hurrah before Spider-Man finally kicked that Iron Boy Jr. title. All this talk about the suits, and I completely forgot to mention the GOAT himself, Jarvis. Let's be super clear, if it wasn't for Jarvis, Tony wouldn't be half as useful.
He runs more of the business than anyone besides Pepper. Top of the line.
What happened when Tony lost Jarvis to Vision? Sokovia blew up, the Avengers split, and half the world was snapped from existence.